Let's talk Bible, Torah, Exodus. Let's get into it. All right, cool. So we left off where Abraham had a son named Isaac, and then Isaac had a son named Jacob, and then Jacob had a son named Joseph, and then Joseph was the one who saved his family and Egypt from a famine. Now it's 400 years later, and the Israelites are still in the shackles of Egypt. The word Exodus came from what the first half of the book is about, which is the Israelites' exodus out of Egypt. Now, the book is broken down into like three parts. You have chapters 1 to 18 where Moses is leading the Israelites out of slavery. Then you have chapter 19 where Moses and God had the dialogue and the conversation and famous story of the 10 commandments. That's what chapter 19 is about. And in chapters 20 to 40 is where Moses gives the 10 commandments along with the blueprint of making a sacred tent called the tabernacle. Now, again, 400 years later, there's a new sheriff in town. There's a new pharaoh in town, and he sees the group of Israelites as a threat to his power. So what does he do? The man said, all of the firstborn Israelites, we are going to drown them into the Nile River. And then there was, which is the introduction of Moses, Israelite woman who said, you know what, I ain't gonna do that. I'm not gonna lie, this child is special and born for some reason, I don't know. So this is what I'm gonna do. Instead of drowning him in the Nile River, I am going to put him in a basket, cover that basket, and float him down the Nile River. And that's what she did, right? And what happened was Pharaoh's daughter finds the baby and decides to keep him. So now Moses went from becoming an Israelite to Egyptian overnight, where he lived in luxury because he is staying with Pharaoh's daughter. Now Moses grows up and he has this encounter with God through the burning bush, the story of the burning bush, and how God told him, hey, I need you to let my people go. This is what you're going to say to Pharaoh. This is how it's going to go down. Bada boom, bada bang. Moses was saying a bunch of hoopla. He was like, no, I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to do this. I stutter. This bunch of excuses. God said, all that is cool. Don't worry about it. I have your back. Just do what I say and I got you. And that's what he did. And he also gave Moses a warning. This ain't gonna be easy, because I ain't gonna lie to you, I am going to harden the Pharaoh's heart. And that's exactly what he did. So then Moses finally goes up there and says, let my people go, blah blah blah. And then he threw the staff on the floor, turned to a snake. And then the sorcerers of the time, there were different sorcerers, they also did the same thing. So they were like, okay, so that doesn't mean anything, because we have the same power that you have. Obviously, they weren't connected to God, right? So then God sent the first 5 plagues. We're going to go over the first 5 plagues of the plagues that God sent to Egypt. So number 1, a plague of blood. So the water was churned into blood, and no one could drink from it. The fish died from it. So it was like foul water, right? Number 2, the plague of frogs. So frogs was all around Egypt, and it covered every inch of the land, and it was all over the place. I hate frogs. I hate frogs. That would have had me. That would have took me out. I would have been like, nope, you got that. The plague number 3 was the gnats, where bugs crawled all over Egypt and covered every inch of Egypt. Like gnats, all of that, like bugs, insects, mosquitoes. I hate mosquitoes, like the whole 9, right? And then number 4 was the plague of flies, where flies of wild animals destroyed everything in their path, like destroying everything, like everything. And then plague number 5 was the livestock. So God struck all of the livestock that was in Egypt: donkeys, camels, cattle, sheep, goats, with like a plague. So it was a plague in the plague. Now, while all of these plagues are going on, right, with the blood, the frogs, the gnats, the flies, livestock, all this stuff, God is protecting Israelite in his unique way through each plague. So though the land of Egypt is going through all of this, all the Israelites that's in Egypt isn't going through all of this, and they can't relate to them boys suffering. Through all of that, all of those first 5 plagues, Pharaoh's heart was still hardened. Like this man did not listen. It was still hardened. So God said, all right, bet, stand on that. And he sent the next 5 plagues. So the next one was the plague of festering boils, where Pharaoh, his servants, and the Egyptians and their animals developed painful boils, like nasty stuff, I guess, growing on their skin and that sort. And then the 7th one was a plague of hail. So it was hail struck down and like destroyed all the crops and fields and shattered every tree. Like, they didn't have cars back then, because when I heard hail, I'm like, oh yeah, all the cars, the glass broke down. They didn't have cars back then, y'all. And then other plague was the plague of lotus, where lotus covered the face of the land and swallowed up every crop and all of the fruits of the trees. And then the second to last was the plague of darkness, where it was pitch dark. It was like God took the sun. It was pitch dark to the point people had to try to see where to go. Like they couldn't see. And again, the Israelites were protected through this whole thing. And then finally the 10th plague, which is the famous one that everyone knows about, which is the Passover. Remember, Pharaoh was like, he told everyone to drown every firstborn Israelite into the Nile River. So now God is reversing it back, where he's like, okay, cool, bet. Stand on that. He's like, okay, bet. So now we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're not going to do a river. Y'all just going to die. And if you are a firstborn Israelite, what you're going to do is you're going to get a lamb and cover your doorsteps with the blood of that lamb. You know where y'all see like people would have the blood of Jesus is like red with white. The blood of Jesus, people have it in their car, their doorsteps, the doors. So that's the origin of where that came from, because of the famous Passover of God striking down every firstborn in the land of Egypt except for the Israelites. So when the angels of death came, you wouldn't get harmed. Your firstborn son would be great, amazing, and safe. Now, finally, Pharaoh let them people go. He like, I ain't gonna lie, y'all boys, God moneying it, God doing too much. I'm gonna let y'all boys go. So that's what happened, right? And then Pharaoh then has a change of heart. As soon as he let them go, he was like, y'all got that, y'all could go. Once he had a change of heart, he was like, nah, give me them boys back. Like, I want the Israelites back. So he goes after them, and now they're going through this chase, and the Israelites were doing the race. You know, they was, doing a race. And then you had the story of the Red Sea and how Moses parted the Red Sea, and with the staff, which I ain't gonna lie, if I had to see a miracle in the Bible, I would love to see that. I think that would have been great and amazing. Now, chapter 15 is Song of the Sea, the first song recorded in the Bible called Song of the Sea, where people of Israel was singing about how God redeemed them, and how salvation means to be rescued from danger. Salvation means rescue from danger. So this is the first time salvation is being used in the Bible. Now we're jumping into chapter 16 to 18 in the wilderness. So now the Israelites become hungry. They start tripping. Their stomachs start growling, and it's a lot going on. Like, it's a long journey to the promised land. He promised Abraham that your descendants will inherit the land of Canaan, and we not at the land of Canaan. Y'all boys said it was supposed to take 11 days. We not there yet. I'm tired. I'm hungry. So they start to doubt God. And though they doubted God and Moses, God still provided for them. So that covers the first half of the book of Exodus. Okay, now, so we get to the other famous part of the book. This is like the middle part of the book. The covenant at Mount Sinai. Let's get into it. So now God invites the nation of Israel into a covenant, a promise. A covenant is a legal agreement between God and Israel. Israel would have access to the presence of God. We jump into chapter 20 to 23, which is the terms of the covenant. So now you got the 10 commandments there, and then also 52 more commandments about worship, social justice, and how for the Israelites to live amongst each other. Because they were so toxic and so used to the way the land of Egypt treated them and how things were. So God is trying to give them instructions of, hey, this is what we doing. What y'all not going to do is go into the land of Canaan and act like a bunch of fools. Like, y'all not going to do that at all. Now, Moses is in his bag. This man is in his bag, and he writing it down. He's like, yeah, God, yeah. And he's just writing everything that God is saying. And then God also gave him instructions, which chapters 25 to 31, instructions on the blueprint of the tabernacle, which is the tent. where God's going to dwell. So the blueprint to the tabernacle was an outer courtyard with an altar, and after that, in the center, there's going to be a tent with an outer room and the inner room. Inside the inner room is going to be something called the holy space, and in that is a box called the Ark of the Covenant, also called the hot spot of God's presence. And if y'all read your Bible, y'all heard a lot about the Ark of the Covenant and what it did, and especially in First Samuel's, and how they were taking it back and forth through different lands and stuff like that, and how powerful it was. Well, this is the origin of the Ark of the Covenant. So finally, Moses is done, bro. He done hopping in his bag. He wrote everything down. He wrote down the 10 commandments and the 52 other commandments and the instructions on the tent. And he's like, this is gonna be amazing. This is what we needed. Like, how can we go wrong with this, right? How can we go wrong? Them boys went wrong, because while he was up there on his way back to give the people of Israel what God was saying, like, y'all boys, this is what we got going on. How can y'all break it? Them boys broke it, bruh. Moses was talking to God. They was on some like, what is taking him so long? Instead of them being impatient, they asked Aaron to do two things that broke the first two commandments that God was just talking to Moses about. So they asked Aaron, and I don't know why Aaron did this. Your brother up there, he's supposed to be your brother's keeper, but I don't know. So they asked Aaron to build a golden calf idol, where they will worship it and say, this is the God that brought us out of Egypt. So that breaks two commandments: no idols and no other gods before me. And they did those two. Them boys hit a 2-for-1 combo. They hit 2 birds with 1 stone. God hot. He hot. And he said, oh yeah, I'm gonna wipe everybody out. Moses technically, spiritually, was holding God back. Like, yo, don't do it. Hold it down. Remember what you promised Abraham. Remember what you said. Remember this. And this, it's as if Moses is holding God accountable, as if God needed it. He needed it, but he didn't, because God is God, right? And he's like, also, what you think everyone's gonna say about us? Like, if the God who did all these great things, like you rescued us from the land of Egypt, and imagine if you just kind of break us, like you do that to us. Like, I ain't gonna lie, that'd be grits. Like, dang, like that ain't cool. Like, them boys finna talk about us, bro. Don't do it, God. And God was like, all right, y'all boys got it. I'm not gonna do it. I was like, okay, bet. I'm gonna forgive y'all. Whatever, right? Cool. And God forgave them, renewed the covenant. The tabernacle was built. They started building. And God's presence came down. And Moses was about to enter the tent. He like, oh yeah, let me see the new crib that let me see God's crib. And he could not enter in the tabernacle, the tent, where God's presence was. Why? The Israelites, their sin was too great. Like, they did, and you guys could read, like, detailed into it of what happened and what they did, and to the point they couldn't inherit what they built. Like, they couldn't reap what they built, but they had to suffer the consequences of. I ain't gonna lie, y'all boys was wild then. God is graceful, God is merciful, but y'all muddied it. In order to be in his presence, we have to be holy. What does holy mean? Holy means set apart. And that's what the next book is about, which is Leviticus. Stay tuned, bruh. Great book. Great series so far. This is Netflix. Y'all don't even know. The Bible's Netflix, man. And we lit, bruh.